Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Eugenics and Science Fiction panel here at CONvergence 2024. My name is Lathan, and I'm the moderator for this discussion. I have some experience, more of like, oh, here. Yeah, here's our last panelist here. But that's okay. I know it's fine. I have more experience in science fiction regarding eugenics. I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I co-host a Star Trek podcast called Twin Cities Trekkies, and we're just gonna go by the seat of our pants here. That's generally what I do on my podcast. So I'm gonna let everyone else introduce themselves, and we'll get started. Go ahead. Yep, we're gonna go from my right onward.
Okay, hi, my name is Mara, and I have a PhD in plant biology. I study population genetics. I use a lot of statistics, which means I am standing on the shoulders of the great eugenicists all the time, and that feels bad. Feels real bad. But I also love science fiction, and I read a lot of the older science fiction, so I'm thinking from 40s, 70s, 80s and 90s a little bit. But people had they had a fascination with where humanity was going, and if we could help it get there faster. And I think they had a lot of bad ideas, and they didn't understand what they were doing. But they took science because science was there, and they assumed science is always right. Therefore, it is science's fault in some ways that eugenics appears in science fiction. So that's what I have to bring to the discussion.
Hi everybody, I'm Brontide. I am a psychotherapist, and also I am an author. I have a book launch party, floor 5, right after this. I actually started researching eugenics for the book that we're launching, and then I got big mad. Some of you who were here earlier know that I took notes. I took notes on some history things that I'm going to share with you today. So warning, it's all terrible. Like a lot of bad things that I'm going to very briefly describe that deserve more in-depth, but we're a 1-hour science fiction panel, so we're going to respond.
Hello, my name is Lathan. Something about me, my degree focus is in biophysics and social anthropology. I am particularly interested in microbiology and particularly sports medicine because I also train and teach martial arts. I've spent the last 15-ish years working with and teaching people with various physical and psychological abilities in terms of like martial arts and fitness and whatnot, and also have lots of opinions on perspectives from eugenics and whatnot. I'm going to be talking probably a lot about science and the cultural base between different scientific disciplines and practices throughout history. Science throughout history is something that's also very interesting to me and how it has been applied. So, I also have lots of opinions and a lot of random fiction that I've watched around this subject. But yeah, I'm excited to share.
Hi everybody, my name is Justin Graves. The pronouns I use are Z-Them. I have a Bachelor's of Art in Gender Studies and Associates in Liberal Arts. I am a very big fan of science fiction, as I imagine a lot of us here are. And I imagine I'll be talking about eugenics mostly from a standpoint of how it has its effects within early 20th century United States and how that relates to what we see in science fiction.
All right.
Oh, and before we start, I don't think I got heard back from all the co-panelists. Is everyone okay if I record this panel for my podcast? Fantastic, thank you, folks.
I'm sorry, this is my first ever CONvergence, so bear with me.
You just got thrown right in the deep end, didn't you?
So yeah, this is my first ever CONvergence, and I'm actually first ever panel I'm doing, and I'm first ever moderating. So yeah, be me. So And like I said at the beginning of this panel, like we're just gonna go. I did not have a set of questions ahead of time, so because typically what moderator does is have a set of questions ahead of time, but I really didn't because it's just I like having like a more of a I don't know like a fluid discussion about it. You know, you don't have a set of questions. It just if you have a set of questions to me, it just feels like we're just going in order, and it just feels like you're in a board meeting or something like that at your job. So, so I just say that first and foremost. So, I think I don't know who wants to start talking about it.
Shall I?
You want to do your?
Shall I jump in the little history rundown?
Yeah.
All right, time me, folks. I told them I could do it in like 2 minutes. All right, so
I'll hold you to it.
I'm gonna try. All right, first off, even though the word eugenics wasn't coined until later, we cannot deny that in the United States it starts with slavery and treating human beings like agricultural crop. Okay, but it started off with popularity in the mid-1800s due to Mendel's research getting out here. You can talk to me later if you want to hear about the United cult, who wanted to literally breed messiahs and angels onto the planet. They were fun. Originally, it was used to basically prop up why white upper-class British people should naturally be rich and upper class because they deserve it because they were genetically superior, but it jumped upon very quickly. By 1907, we have laws in the US supporting forced sterilization for criminals, those in mental institutions, and then jump pretty quickly to other disabilities, especially deaf people, epileptic folks, and I love this. They really liked to go through and check on the orphanages, so yeah. By 1910, so this is a fast trip, we have the Department of Human Eugenics, which is within the American Breeders Association in the Department of Agriculture. Yeah, that's how I felt about that too. This was backed by a number of prominents, including Carnegie, Rockefeller, Kellogg, and their explicit statement was to investigate and report on heredity and the human race and emphasize the value of superior blood and the menace to society of inferior blood. 1 year later, 1911, Carnegie Institute proposed 18 methods of removing defective genes from the American gene pool, including mass institutionalization, mass incarceration, forced sterilization, laws against race mixing, and laws against allowing disabled people to get married. And number 8 on their list was euthanasia by gas chamber. So you can guess who picked up that suggestion and ran with it, not too much longer. They managed to successfully pass a number of laws in a variety of states. Did I hit 2 minutes already? All right. 1920s, focus on anti-immigration laws. Between 1907 and 1963, there were over 64,000 sterilizations, mostly of women of color, almost exclusively poor women, while at the same time there were laws preventing the right kind of ladies from getting birth control. I have more depressing numbers. After 1963, it's not that this stopped, it's that there was no longer a federal movement. Instead, it was at doctor's discretion. So they were simply, you would come in for an appendix removal or to give birth, and they would just sterilize you while they were there and not tell you. By 1979, there were laws supposedly banning this. However, in 2006, we have record of women getting offered early release from long-term prison sentences if they would consent to sterilization. And in 2020, we have registered proof of immigrant women in detained facilities being sterilized against their will. That brings about us to date. On fun parties.
Yeah, good, thank you, Lee, for that. And that was really, I don't know about you, but that felt, I don't know about you guys, but did that sound graphic to you a little bit? Just a little bit? Just a little bit? Yeah. Yeah, so that's a really fascinating kind of thing to talk about, you know, the history of eugenics, especially in the United States, is definitely an interesting one. I'm just going to say that to lack of a better term. It's kind of a horrible one, but Let's see here.
I recall Star Trek being brought up by a number of the panelists.
Oh yes,
in the emails.
Star Trek.
I have so many feelings about Julian Bashir and other things, but I'm talking, so somebody else please talk.
Yeah, Star Trek could have handled so much about eugenics better. Not only with Julian Bashir, but the thing that comes to mind the most would be the Augments arc in Enterprise, because they had Phlox, the Nobulan, talk about how people from his planet use genetic engineering, but they use it as a medical tool for, curing disease, not for improving the species. And as we as a society are, moving forward in our own, I shouldn't say forward, but creating new sciences and technologies, things like CRISPR, where we can have designer babies, we are even closer to accidentally creating a con, just because someone, will want certain traits instead of going along the path of the denobulans and working on curing diseases with the genetic manipulation. It's a very fine line, yes, but there are too many organized assholes. I'm sorry, are there kids in here? No? Okay, good. There are too many organized assholes.
Yeah, definitely. I just remember that one quote from Star Trek, superior ambition breeds superior ability breeds superior ambition.
Okay.
What you say?
I'm gonna also jump in on this and kind of just, from my perspective, let's talk evolution. Because at the core of this, biology, that is like, I remember my first biology class was like, all biology only makes sense in the context of evolution. And so much of science fiction, so much, and again, like the first discovery of like Mendelian genetics or the origin of the species, like these are these new discoveries where we're like, oh, we're starting to understand how life works and how things have come to be the way they are. And I think it's really important to say that like these initial discoveries were like really fascinating and gave this really good perspective. But nothing happens in a vacuum. And while these discoveries are being made, while these discoveries of how biology works, of how evolution works, there was the slave trade going on. There was the push for profit. And all of a sudden, there were these tools, that could be like utilized to justify things that make profit, but are extremely horrifying to do to other human beings. And I think probably the best example of this, and going into this, is the origin of the intelligence test, which began with a French psychologist, Alfred Binet, who was simply tasked with like, as we are industrializing, how can we measure where our kids are in different areas in order to understand what they need to learn and what we need to like beef up. That was his entire point. So he created a series of tests to test different areas of knowledge, of reading, of mathematics, of spatial comprehension, and these were all separate tests. And a couple of things about this is that like, there should not be any strong correlation drawn between what these results are, between each other, or what someone's own ability is in the larger scope. Another English psychologist took this idea and noticed what he believed was a small correlation, like people who did well on the math did well on the reading, and people who did well in spatial orientation, all those. So he created this whole idea of G, general intelligence, this idea that there is this initial quality born in all people that tells you how intelligent they're going to be in all areas their entire life. He did tests to try to confirm this, which did not confirm his own theory. And he just wrote, nope, that's how it works, even though none of my actual, took the concept, and I took the concept of how to measure where someone is at a moment in an area so you could give them help, and turned it into, this is how good you will be for the rest of your life. And that became the standard. And it is very much and that very standard also became what was used like, for defining whether or not some people were okay to be owned and who could be owners. From that simple kernel of wanting to try to understand how to better help humans, immediately turned into a profit motive which corrupted the actual data.
And which was then used for who can we forcibly sterilize and who we can't. And I just want to jump in as a therapist for a moment to say, we have changed a lot in metrics of psychology over the many decades since then. It still doesn't work that way. It's not going to work that way. It's never going to work that way. Like, just putting that out there, IQ gets used for a lot of eugenic nonsense.
I'd really like to mention a story that is all about IQ, the Marching Morons by CONvergence. Science fiction writers, especially from that time, loved to think that they were very intelligent. The smartest man in the room, surrounded by morons. So he took that to the extreme, where there's a secret cabal of people who have just naturally smart people only breed with smart people. So they've decreased in number, and now they live at the South Pole, and they secretly run the Earth. And of course, the stupid people all breed with each other, and they breed a lot. So they've taken over the Earth, and they think they're in charge, when actually they're being run.
But population, if the other group is proliferating more, wouldn't that make them the dominant in the area? But I don't think, okay.
They don't vote.
The people who live in California are a lot smarter than the people who live in Antarctica.
I like that, yeah.
You were totally in the middle of something when I came in to degrade my profession briefly.
Well, I think something else that's really important to also keep in mind, and I think it's something that is even misleading in the word evolution, where it's like something is progressing, it is developing, there's this idea that there is a directionality to it, and that I think has been something that has been both overly emphasized in even in the scientific fields, but also in science fiction itself. There is this idea that evolution is happening to move living things to some particular goal or endpoint.
Progress.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Nature makes repeated and horrific mistakes.
When in actuality, what happens is an environmental change happens, and living organisms adapt to that change however they can. Sometimes adaptation is just like they die out. Sometimes it's developing something that's really weird and niche that has no other use for any other reason. Sometimes it's developing a trait that is actually pretty useful for a multitude of things. I eat naked mole rats. I have loose skin, therefore I get cancer slightly less often. Still get cancer, they still get it, just not as often, and yeah, cool, good for them. That happens sometimes, but there is no particular direction. Life just exists and figures out whatever's happening around it. And the term of like survival of the fittest, which is very much whatever is most fit for the environment, almost immediately, because social Darwinism, the concept of social Darwinism shows up so quick after origin species shows up, of this idea that somehow there is a better version of people or whatnot that is supposed to be dominant. That is not what that means. Fitness is simply about like, oh, I'm in a cold room. I'm either good at generating my own body heat or I have the intelligence to go get a jacket. Both of those are fitness. That is, and I think a big thing about science fiction, because science fiction, so much of it has been drawn as much from like pop culture science media as actual science, is that it really latched onto this idea that somehow evolution is going somewhere to homo superior, which is a term that shows up a lot in different types of fictional stories, from mutants to tomorrow people, although tomorrow people are an interesting thing I'll get to in a minute. But I think that's kind of important, is that has been, that whole idea of evolution being progress has been so foundational to science and so foundational to Western scientific perspective, and thus to Western perspective science fiction. It's why it keeps showing up in all these different ways, and it is very problematic because it promotes this particular idea that there is a best version of really anything when it's more just like whatever kind of works at the time.
Well, and that we don't benefit from having a whole bunch of different prototypes running around for all the different circumstances that we find ourselves in. I'm a big fan of the neurodiversity model. A lot of different brains for a lot of different problems, and we benefit by having a community with a bunch of them, because we're social species.
Oh yes, totally. In fact, rolling back just a minute to the intelligence tests. Remember a couple years ago where universities stopped doing the SATs because they're very culturally specific. They do not cover, what it takes to get through university, does not actually show how intelligent one is. A number of universities are bringing them back now in 2024 and into 2025, which is a problem for so many reasons. But to also help tie it back into a more specific part of the panel, we are approaching when the Bell riots are supposed to happen. And we are very much setting up the flashpoint for the Bell riots. Now, one of the big things about one of the people in the sanctuary districts for the Bell riots were people with mental illness and being demonized and ostracized for it. Where a number of what we consider mental illnesses or neurodivergence, as you were saying, is just being optimized for other things. Watching the sheep, keeping an eye out at the middle of the night while everyone else is asleep.
Totally. Yeah.
I want to touch on one thing. We're currently discussing evolution as synonymous with natural selection, but I want to point out that that's only one portion of evolution. Evolution is also encompassing mutation, which is totally random, genetic drift, which is by definition totally random. So if Con fails to have children, oops, he's gone. Doesn't matter how great he was.
Yeah.
And then also migration, but that's less important here. But a lot of evolution is truly random. It means nothing what you're good at. You just died.
There is no gene for rocks fall on you.
Well, maybe Wolverine.
I guess Con should have optimized to swipe right.
Oh, don't worry.
But has anybody else read Brave New World? All right, good. Glad a lot of us. Now, one of the things that reminds me of Brave New World is how births in that world, unless you're from, where was that? Mexico, I think, or the Grand Canyon, or both. The reservations, how births are very planned out. Society is supposed to be supposedly perfected by using eugenics. And it seems to me that what Huxley was trying to get at was it doesn't make a better society if you follow the eugenics path that his era, remember that he is, when you read that, the 60s, the 50s? Was setting up for. While it was still right when the United States was trying to divorce itself from overt eugenicism, it was still very much part of the culture, as it still is now, just becoming more obvious again. Any thoughts on that, my friends?
I read a dissection of this, how we assume it was saying eugenics is bad, but given his feelings on eugenics, if you listen to who he was with at the time, it could in fact be that he was supportive of eugenics, but only done the right way. So you need to make sure you don't have too many exceptional people, because they're just gonna fight, and it's not gonna work. You need fewer exceptional people who are in charge, and more.
You need a peasant class.
Peasants.
Yeah, okay.
Now that you say that, I do remember trying the society with just class A people. Am I thinking of the right book, or is that another?
That's
You're
okay.
right, they're like A and B.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that. That just puts a new light on it altogether.
Well, something that also in terms of collective interaction, it often gets ignored that we are a social species, and it also gets ignored that most cultures that aren't the Western colonial culture are based around collective action and interaction. And this feeds a lot, there's a lot of connecting running narratives. Like in science fiction and fiction in general that we're used to, there's often a singular protagonist or hero character. We get very focused on this idea of this one person, this usually one guy that is standing above the others, able to do things that other people can't. Actually, it was brought up. Captain America type figures. Because in the comics, we're gonna have a whole army, but so far we have one super soldier. That's all we really kind of need. And there is this really focus on oneness, on hierarchy of things, and in that particular story narrative, it puts a certain group of people above others, which is really important if you need to have a worker class, and a class that doesn't do anything except feed off of that worker class. But it also creates this particular idea that you have to have that there is an ideal being who can do all these different things all the time, and that is very flawed in terms of how we actually survive. And I have a funny story. I was at another convention years ago with one of my friends, and I'm kind of large, kind of beefy, and he is much more skinny. He's much skinny and would talks about how would not do well in a fight. And so we were talking to someone at one point about if society collapsed, I would not be able to survive. And it's of course you would. You'd be vital. Remember that time when I was talking to that one girl, and and we were just kind of chit-chatting and whatnot, and you were turned to me and goes "Are you okay?" She had this weird look in her eye, I was "Oh, flirting, yes." But if that had been a thread, you would have noticed it first, because I was oblivious. I was quite oblivious to what was going on the entire time. So if not for him, I would either be killed by something that was really sweet and interesting, or just never made because I don't actually pick up on flirting cues very well. And then I would keep him safe from anything that's a visibly physical thing. We work together, and that's very, very important. I mean, we don't really think about the fact that we are kind of designed in various ways, even in casual social interactions, but also for our survival, to work off each other's strengths and guard against each other's weaknesses. That's what social species do, but that's also not common in most pop culture narratives where you have to have this one hero who stands above everyone else.
Or maybe 5 people.
Yes.
But you could have a team of Avengers, but they still get to boss around the government.
So, can I respond to that too? Okay, so Sherry S. Tepper loves eugenics, but she loves it in a special way. She is interested in breeding for morality. She wants to domesticate us. So in Gate to Women's Country, that was the secret method all along. We need to select only the most congenial men to reproduce. And it's almost impossible to select for something like this. There's so many genes involved. But I think she has the most likely scenario to make it happen. She has decreased the generation time. You breed as early as possible, and you only breed with the most desirable men who have proven to be not a warlike, useless thug. And it's terrible, but I love it. I don't approve of this, but I love it.
What did you say this was again?
This was Gate to Women's Country by Sherry S. Tepper.
Gate to Women's Country by Sherry S. Pepper. Is this a book or a...
It's a book.
Okie dokie.
And if you want to look at the real world examples of breeding morality, which by the way, a lot of eugenicists were oh yes, clearly the poors are degenerate, and we people with money, we are morally superior. But do look up the Oneida cult. Oneida that is where they were. It has nothing to do with the tribe. It's just, that was the location they were in, Oneida. And like I said, they were literally thought that they could breed messiahs and angels, and they would reproduce so selectively that everyone would be immortal and it would be heaven on earth. And it just so happened that the cult leader and his favorite people we're the ones with the good genes that we're gonna, you know, get everybody to the next moral level. It's a big surprise, but check it out. They, find me afterwards if you want to hear who my wife's related to, and it's a good story. Yeah.
Wow, this is big. All you guys have brought up is really fascinating. I'm just going to bring that up right now. It's really fascinating because, you know, it's just, to me, it's just really fascinating to hear all this discussion. It really is. It really is. I'm actually being educated. So, and because, you know, I don't mind it. You know, you learn something new every day. So, I don't mind that. So.
I think also something that also was just brought up too is like, also people don't really realize that eugenics doesn't work actually. Because like people figure out, oh, I can change how tall a pea plant is vanilla genetics, or like I can mess with dog genes, which I guess I've heard one talk about how they have a very slippery genome, so you can kind of do, but also think about, we can make a lot of changes in dog, but not nearly as much in domestic cats, although whether or not cats are domesticated or domesticated, that's another question. But like, yes, you can maybe like select, oh, I'm gonna change this particular gene that you've seen has a relation to intelligence, but intelligence and the genetic traits that control it are far more complex. And on top of that, you then have when genes turn on and turn off, you have environmental conditions. There are so many factors that affect how particularly you could like, oh, these individuals like clearly are very kind and docile, and so we're only gonna breed them. Like, that is not guaranteed that at one point, one spawn's like, you know what? How about arson? Like, there's actually far more complexity into what goes into making us who we are, that even with our current technology, the idea that we could really guarantee that you could make a superior person, you could pick all these traits to have like the most, like with the best fast twitch muscles and heightened intelligence, all of these things to make this like tough warrior, and then some kid from a ghetto who's just been fighting all his life could whoop that person's ass, and you're like, now what? Also, that's kind of the premise of like the second kickboxer revitalized movie was literally that. We're gonna make a genetically enhanced superhuman, and then you know what? I'm gonna go train in prison for like three months and whoop and beat the crap out of him, and it's like ridiculous, but also there's a really important lesson I feel like people should learn. It's like that is not unrealistic in how that fight might actually go. You might think the giant guy's gonna win, but no, scrappy and willed and like has a reason to like win. Also was trained by blind Jean-Claude Van Damme, so you know, don't just don't count it out yet. But yeah, I think it's also something like really important that like there is real science, there is real understanding of how biology, how nature works. And then there's the things that people have come up with, made it sound like empirical research, and it's just nonsense. And have tried to build entire rules and social structures around it, and it just doesn't actually work. And that's kind of what I think makes eugenics, in particular in science fiction, very problematic, because science fiction is so much, at least for me, it's always been a gateway to trying to understand science better and want to be engaged with science and engaged with understanding the world. And when you have this large glaring thing that is just wrong in every level possible, it's kind of like, well, that's disappointing. At minimum, it's like, what? Yeah, I mean, I can't just like pick the right person and my babies will have heat vision. I'm shocked and dismayed. I will never science again. Good day, sir.
Lathan, I don't know about the rest of you, but I think we got the message across. I think eugenics are bad. I think we got that message across.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think we have, because I'm just thinking about, like, I was gonna bring this up, I'm just thinking about all the other, like, eugenics gone bad or genetics going wrong, you know. I'm not thinking just of Star Trek, I'm thinking of like other science fiction horror movies like The Fly, for example, or something like that. You know, it can be really, really bad. I think the message has gotten across. So,
I think we start asking open up for questions.
yeah. Oh yeah, so I think we can open up the rest of the panel for questions. So, who wants to go first?
I
I think you in the third row.
Before we answer questions, there are cards with colors and symbols on them. Please use those
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you have them.
Okay.
Yes, those. Yes.
All right. So let's.
In the third row, I think.
Yeah.
Blue shirt?
Blue. I know she had her hand up. The hand up first.
I think blue shirt first, then we'll go here and we'll kind of work our way back and around.
Yeah.
So blue shirt and then.
Daisy Mask.
So science fiction that sort of deals with eugenics, and I think this one that I'm going to bring up might actually be anti-eugenics in a way, maybe not written to be, but like, would it count Jurassic Park?
Oh, Jurassic Park.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Well, I think about that in the sense of be careful what you clone.
Yeah.
And also, I can see it as an environmental message, especially now, these days, where diseases that we haven't seen in millions of years are starting to surface again due to the thawing permafrost. But I can appreciate the eugenics angle, especially with the, what is that dinosaur called? The Megasaur or something?
Oh, was the weird hybrid one they made?
Yeah, that weird hybrid one they made.
Oh, yeah.
Indominus Rex.
Indominus Rex, thank you, yeah.
I mean, my lesson from Jurassic Park is just like, stop trusting rich people.
Yeah.
First off,
Very true.
Like, first off, there was nothing wrong with the park security until someone was bribed to break it and steal stuff, and dinosaurs got out. There was no issue on the Lost World Island until I'm gonna go over here and grab some dinosaurs so I can make an amusement park in California. Like, it's so funny because it's like the whole premise of the movie is just, movies is all like, life finds a way. No! Greedy rich people break things and then stuff goes wrong. Literally, the dinosaurs did nothing. Every single movie, even the Indominus Rex one, it's just like, why didn't you tell us that it could camouflage itself? We wouldn't have opened the cage if we knew it could hide its heat signature and camouflage like the freaking predator. So that is, I feel like that's actually, which I do think ties to eugenics, and eugenics is very much largely like a rich person kind of project, but it's just like, don't use science for just pure profit. That goes wrong terribly. I feel is a good theme that's both in eugenic science fiction and in Jurassic Park.
I will say the frogs would probably be like finds a way. Just the frogs.
Okay. All right, we'll first.
Mine's sort of related. So science fiction with eugenics, but that's, arguing against it. So example I was thinking of is clearly your book, but also Dune and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I'm trying to.
Dune is a really tricky one because I mean Dune is a we need to like breed a superior type of being because we made computers too smart and the computers hated us. So like it's like a choice between two poor uses of science, like either like computer engineering went wrong, now we're gonna try to like breed superhumans. Well, that's not going too well for us either. And just like maybe like I don't know, maybe you should invest your science into like therapy or like
I don't know that I would have helped.
like they're just running out of sciences to do good with and do it at this particular point.
All right.
How about we just like jump this way and then we'll kind of zag back and.
All right, let's do that.
So.
I'm curious about what kind of lessons we've learned from sci-fi literature, media about eugenics.
I honestly think that the sci-fi has kind of lagged.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we could be doing better. And that's it, I haven't seen some of the newer track. How are they, well, you said Enterprise was maybe not doing so good? I don't know. But I have not seen a lot of, hey, the problem with eugenics is that it's incredibly inhumane and does not honor the, here's a good one, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. That's an anti-eugenics message. And I don't actually see that enough. I see, we're gonna make Captain America and that's the perfect guy. We're gonna make super soldiers and that's what's perfect. That's what evolution is leading us towards. No, if I'm stuck in the trenches in World War II, how much does that man have to eat? Like, there is not one goal that we should be aiming towards. It's good that we are different from each other, and that's actually a strength as a species, and I have yet to see that really in my science fiction. I bet someone's done it, other than me, but like, I don't feel like that's the dominant message. I think we're still very much in love with the genetically perfected super soldier, or the ham-fisted gay allegory mutant.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. The going back to Captain America right quick, in the, what was it, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they did touch upon when the United States tried the super soldier program again on the African American soldiers, and then arrested them all afterwards. They could have done so much with that, but dropped the ball almost immediately. Falcon and the Winter Soldier it had a great premise and poor execution the whole way through. Though it does also show that there are certain mindsets where you think you have to have the super soldier serum, the whatever serum, because you are the right person for it, and therefore you must have it. Thinking of US agents. And how that, we as a society do have people who, look and act like him, who have those same beliefs. So that is something to watch out for. They could have also gone further with that, which they did not touch on at all. The closest thing was when he was upset that he got beat by the Dora Milaje. They didn't even have superpowers.
Have you seen him?
Yeah, kick ass.
I think that was also very much just like honestly they bit off more than they could chew. It's like with that subject matter, and they did not want to really follow up on the level of social, implication of the experimentation on black soldiers, on who gets to have power. Like, there was a lot of things that they kind of edged towards, and a lot of issues of like power, of like larger societal moments where I feel like they literally were like, on second thought, let's not stir a pot. I see this all the time, but like, we made that one Black Panther movie, and suddenly like everyone's up in arms about where museums got artifacts, and that wasn't even, like, there were so many other major social issues that Black Panther could have touched on, and that was just one, and it turned like, I feel like Disney was saying like, let's turn down our social commentary a tad before we like destroy the markets that feed us, type of thing.
Same.
All right, who's you going next?
This person here in the very front row has been waiting forever.
Yeah, that's true.
Piggybacking off of what you mentioned a little while ago and kind of where we're going, are there any shapes of stories that touch on eugenics that you want to see more of? Or do you think it would be better if we just kind of ignored it for a while?
Well, I would like, since Star Trek Strange New Worlds has been renewed, and Prodigy is renewed through Netflix instead of Paramount, because, Paramount's greedy. Sorry, season 2 just dropped. I don't know if season 3 is happening.
No, there isn't. No.
No season 3?
Not yet.
Sad days.
Watch it, folks.
But anyway,
Watch it.
as I was getting to, I would like to see more about the denobulans and their use of genetic engineering and how that is used in contrast to Earth and its genetic engineering. Because the eugenics ban in the Federation is based off of Earth's fears of there being another con. But that also means a lot of medical research is off the table. There are things that can just help people who might need it, like, those fetuses that may have their organs on the outside. Find a way to make it so that their organs are put back in so that it continues to be a viable pregnancy. That would be perhaps a good use of genetic engineering. We don't have to go overboard with it. So that would be something I would like to see. Maybe do that in season 4 if they didn't write about it in season 3. But that's me.
I wrote a book. A couple of them, actually. It's a 5-book series, so you can come talk to me later if you want to hear that rant.
All right, let's go with this person up here in the third row there.
I'd like to hear the panel compare and contrast eugenics as applied to humans by these breeding and sterilization programs or genetic manipulation compared with, I don't know if the word eugenics is even appropriate, but as it applies to breeding corn or breeding tulips or breeding dogs.
Plants eugenics.
And I would like to just start off with, I've had cats and dogs as pets all of my life. And all of them, I've really had great pets and really loved living with them. All of them just came to me. They were either just showed up at my door, or the neighborhood kids brought them to me because they knew I was soft-hearted. And the only dog that I had that was a real asshole was one that my parents bought from a dog breeder. And I'm wondering if that's an accident or if that's kind of typical.
Oh, sure. Well, I think when it comes to breeding humans and animals, as for the dog, a lot of the purebreds are very inbred, which will cause a lot of anger issues, which I imagine humans will have the same thing with royal family, all of Europe having the same royals as cousins. Whereas while we have cultivated certain crops to feed us better, feed us more, we have also unintentionally, or probably intentionally due to some rich guy, have created a number of monocrops, making it so that one good disease will hit that one crop and wipe it out, and then we'll be out of food for a while. Kind of like the banana. We are not on the banana we ate 40 years ago. This is the second banana.
And that banana's on the way out.
And that banana is on the way out because it's been hit by another disease. They got to cultivate a new banana. So to compare them, trying to do eugenics on humans could lead to a similar result with plants, in that something will go wrong eventually, be it too much hemophilia or a disease will take out your monocrop.
I think there's also a very fundamental thing where it's like growing crops, growing certain animals, is like there's always a very clear and physical purpose. Oh, I want this fruit to be bigger. I want to be able to last in colder temperatures. I want this dog to be able to hunt rabbits in holes, or I want to be able to scare off bears. And those, I find them fascinating because those are very specific jobs. And it's also very acknowledged in those types of breeds, these will also create other negative traits, and we're gonna need to breed other crops and other animals to do other things. So when it comes to doing anything that's not humans, there's that unawareness that, oh, we are breeding for special traits, and we're gonna get trade-offs of how we do these things. But with humans, it's oh, we can create a perfect, all-encompassing being. And I think that's kind of where I do think there's problems in both, where there's the assumption that oh, we can just make this completely perfect, and we can just get this one trait and it'll be fine, and we'll just only use this one thing. That kind of that monocropping type of issue is definitely a problem, but I think there's also, they showcase two different aspects of kind of hubris. One, just somehow humans are different and we can make a universally better being, when we clearly don't believe that with anything else that we apply genetic hybridization to.
When you're talking about plants, you want to keep in mind that the elite lines that we grow, say for example corn, those tend to be the best performing over a wide range of environments. If you pick a single trait, say you want really high sugar in this corn, you can push it even more. And we haven't done that because for whatever reason, it's not the most desirable outcome. So we stick with the elite line that's good across the board. So yeah, if you were to push a human in that direction, it would obviously cause problems.
Also, just corn doesn't suffer the same way that humans do.
Oh yeah.
Like, sometimes with animal breeding, we do get out of hand, but corn doesn't have a same nervous system. Okay, and we're also going to cut it down and eat it anyways. So, yeah, the corn doesn't suffer. And also, this is a little bit the difference is the technology bad, or is the control that certain people have been given over the technology bad? And I'm not going to get my moments out to rant right now, but those are slightly separate issues that I think deserve a separate panel.
All right. I think we have time for a few more. So, how about the gentleman, the person over there with the mask? Yeah.
Green mask?
Green mask guy. Sorry.
I think that it would be remiss of us to not at least touch on eugenics in anime. Because, oh my god. I'll give you two examples. Irregular in Magic High School is basically Harry Potter with eugenics. And much more recently, My Happy Marriage is Cinderella with eugenics, of all things.
Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry, what did you say these anime were? What were the names?
Irregular at Magic High School.
Irregular at Magic High School.
As in irregular.
Irregular.
Is Harry Potter essentially with eugenics, okay, in a science fiction setting. And My Happy Marriage.
My Happy Marriage.
Which I saw that one.
Cinderella with eugenics.
And the Cinderella character is basically like, everyone's mistreating her, but instead of going to a ball and she's beautiful, they're like, oh wait, she's a really good eugenic product. Everyone wants to marry her and get her into their bloodline. And it's so weird because the anime does not seem to treat this like a problem.
It is so fucking weird.
They're uncomfortable.
I've seen very little anime, so I don't have anything. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thanks for that suggestion. I'm going to say that right now.
I mean, I think what you find that so much of anime is, and anime does draw from Western animation and Western sci-fi, like so much, like whole century of being modernized to Westernized standards and getting a lot of Western fiction, a lot of Western writing, so it's not really particularly surprising. Also, eugenics does have a particular connection with, like, a particular kind of ring if you're talking about, like, good ancestry or coming from a lot of eugenics thought came from this idea of, like, a superior human that existed at one point, which, like, this is what this race is descended from, as opposed to this other race that's descended from a more inferior race of people. And when you, like, kind of blend it in with things like, you know, having, like, divine ancestry or, like, demon blood or whatnot as that being a source of power, it's not really that surprising that particularly comes up. I have to, like, point out, like, in so many anime where it's like, this hero is like, he's plucky and he overcomes obstacles and by sheer force of will. Also, he happens to be the descendant of the most powerful soul reaver, or it was like, his ancestor was the most powerful demon slayer, or this person, or like this prime. It's like, yes, willpower and justice, but also cheating a little bit. Like everyone else was trying to do the same thing that he did, also died because they were not built like superhuman. Or not humans, really. So I can see that happens a lot, but there's also a lot of historical interlacing for why that is.
Another bit of eugenics that I'm thinking of with popular anime recently is My Hero Academia. You have Endeavor married a woman particularly because he wanted kids with a perfect balance of their two superpowers, and then they just kept having kids because he was trying to, like, get it right. And I thought that there was some, but, like, the anime at least starts off with condemning, like, this was a really messed up family situation, but also there's a lot of abuse apologist stuff going on in that series, so it kind of, I feel, muddies its message a bit in the end.
I think you have time for maybe one more.
We haven't got to the back yet.
Yeah, let's move on to the back. I don't know which one you guys want to think.
You two gotta fight.
Prove which one of you is superior.
There you go.
Green circle.
Thank you. So, one, we talked about the breadth and development of eugenics from eugenics and social Darwinism up through the golden age sci-fi of the Huntington man. My knowledge of sci-fi history is a little fuzzy in like the 80s and 90s. What I am seeing a lot of in this century is turning eugenics into the social message. Having movies like Gattaca and, oh boy, blanking on other things from my examples, but having that be the message of, isn't this social policy that people in power and who have the money and the will and the terrible, terrible vision, how are we going to critique a system using eugenics as an example, as opposed to the science and, hey, we've done something cool with epigenetics. One of my favorite sci-fi books of the century is Seven Eves. Spoilers for the second half of Seven Eves, but it's in the title, where you have 7 branching genetics gene pools, and what do you do with that? It talks more about the science, the epigenetics, and how bloodlines then go down. I wonder if, I didn't have a question.
That's fine.
That evolution of the narrative. We also have transhumanism stories, which are slightly different spin on gene modification to tell a story. We talked about Huntington man. We talked about I'm summarizing myself. Using it as a social mores. What other story types have we been seeing where the message is not eugenics itself, it's the tool to talk about our society today and our societies of tomorrow?
Idiocracy.
Yeah.
I can't think of an example of that.
Me neither. I can't either.
Star Trek Strange New Worlds. The episode where number 1 is on trial because she was genetically modified seemed to be an episode, to me, it seemed to be more of an episode about race divisions than about actual genetic manipulation.
This is not quite that, but if you go and watch, I think it's called Our Man Bashir, the episode where it turns out Bashir is genetically modified, spoilers for a 70-year-old series. Not 70, I'm not that old. Sorry.
20-year-old series?
30 years old plus.
If you watch it now and pretend it came out today, it becomes a story about autism.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense because I'm actually on the autism spectrum, so.
Yeah, it becomes about how do we fix our kid so that they're normal, so that they can be what we want them to be. Which is one of the main things that inspired one of my books. That's why I watched it recently. But if you watch it through a now lens, it's very much, it ports over to that message very quickly. So I don't know that I've seen them do it on purpose so much, but like, fandom works really hard.
Oh, by the way, the episode that Justin is referring to is called Ad Astra per Aspera. So in case anyone wants to find out what episode he's talking about. So
this is really weird that just now occurred to me, and I never thought that I would be giving credit for something like this to this movie, but Man of Steel is very subversive of the eugenics trope. Because the premise at the beginning of this is that Krypton has been so focused on controlling and regulating the genetics of who is born that it has kind of like stagnated their ability to like adapt and change. And so they bring up that Kal-El is the first natural-born Kryptonian in centuries. And they take the collective information of Krypton's like population genetics and encode it into his cells so that he can carry it and they can restart their species in a more natural, diversified format where not everyone is just designed to be a scientist, be a soldier, be this, which is also very ironic that like Jor-El's engineered to be a scientist, but he whooped the crap out of Zod the soldier. I don't know how that happened. I guess, but weirdly, like that whole very message of just like being so focused on trying to engineer life as opposed to just letting life develop and find its own way, which is a common message in that movie, which is just very flawed in so many other ways. It's like, I didn't even think about that, but that would probably be a good example of any kind of subversive against eugenics where it's just like, we're using genetic engineering to encode something so that we can bring it, so that we can like save our species from being hyper-focused on engineering and like let diversity actually flow.
All right.
Say
Well,
what?
move on. That's it. So thank you very much for coming.
Add to the discussion by commenting on this video.